It's time for Transport Line, the program that showcases the contributions of all modes of transportation to the socio-economic growth and development of our country, Africa, and the rest of the world. Transport Line is being beamed to you from the Center of Excellence, the state of aquatic splendor, and Africa's second largest economy, Lagos. I am Shina Elegbede. Glad to know that you are keeping us company. Nigeria 65. So far, we've examined the inland waterways and aviation modes of transportation. Today, we shall focus on railways mode of transportation. The railway has come a long way. In fact, in Nigeria, its evolution was there before the entity called Nigeria came on board. So, the pre-colonial period, the colonial period, independence period, and to date, how far have we gone? When you consider what is happening in Japan, China, as regards the development of the railway mode of transportation, you say, we still have a long way to go. But well, mine is not to pass judgment. How do we move forward? I have with me our regular resource person as regards rail mode of transportation. I'm referring to Paul Indibe, who is in the studio already to let us judge as regards Nigeria 65 rail mode of transportation. Paul, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Paul, here we are, Nigeria 65. How do you see us, the journey so far, and the way forward?
Well, thank you. Well, the railways in Nigeria was established in 1898, so we will say that it's 127 years this year. If you look at the time frame from inception to now, and then have a midpoint from independence, since we are looking at Nigeria at 65, it means the railway had been in existence for 62 years before our independence and had also existed for another 65 years. That would make the 127 years. The best way to evaluate the state of the railways would be to look at the infrastructural development and contribution of the railways in its first part, which is 1898 to 1960. And of course, its current situation now from 1960 to date. Well, there may be various parameters to do this evaluation, but let's look at just three. In terms of the track route, the route kilometer of the existing, of the NRC, Nigeria Railway Corporation, up to independence is 3,505 kilometers. If you look at that is the route kilometer, but the track kilometer is over 4,600 when you put the sidings, the loops, and all that. So there is a distinction between the route kilometer and, of course, the track kilometer. Even though we had that on the narrow gauge, but that was the technology that was prevalent at the time, essentially. Now, technology had moved, but Nigeria is also key into the new technology, at least with the standard gauge lines. But if you look at the totality of what we have done in the 65 years after independence, it's a total of about 1,062 kilometers. If you consider the 157 Lagos to Ibadan, 186 Abuja to Kaduna, 286 Warri Itabe, and 393 Maradi Kano. Even though it's not yet completed, but it's what we are expecting with the timetable the federal government is giving. So looking at the differentiation, 3,505 and 1,062, there's a great margin. However, you might look at the level of technology that the two has offered. Now, you have the standard gauge on the new bit. It offers greater speed, higher volume, and greater comfort and all that. But one thing will be remarkable, that they are all passenger heavy. What I mean by that is that look at the Abuja Kaduna. It's essentially passenger. Look at the Warri Tape. It was intended for iron ore and all that. But all of a sudden, because of the issues at Ajokuta, it was downgraded to passenger, even though there's a skeletal traffic offering on that line. But it's not substantial enough to offset the cost for installation of the track. The Maradi may offer both passenger and then freight. So if you look at this, even Lagos Ibadan, it's passenger and freight, but they are not freight heavy as to warrant quicker return of investments. So if you look at these two sets of development along these two lines, one would be tempted to say that it was better for the period 1898 to 1960 than 1960 to the present time.
The way things are, like you all know, railway development is capital intensive. And one area from your brief analysis is that you must try to do something that will bring quick returns of investment. How would you advise government to go about it? You've done it, mentioned it, Abuja Kaduna, Lagos Ibadan, Warri Tape, and Kaduna Maradi.
Kano Maradi.
Kano Maradi.
Correct.
So, how do we go about it? Because there must be quick returns.
Okay. Well, like I stated earlier, there might be various perspectives for evaluating the two bits, but looking at the advantages they individually had offered or are still offering, there's still that link between Lagos and Kano on the narrow gauge line. The issue of technology may weigh against its sustenance. Then the track bed, the curbs, the gradients and all that. But we cannot clearly say that the bid from 1960 to now hasn't improved. No, it has its own, positive sides, because we will not overlook the unbundling of the railway, which has warranted interventions both from state governments and private sector into the NRC, though the benefits are yet to really come to the front. That's number one. Look at the beautiful thing the Lagos state government is doing regarding the red line and the blue line. Other states are looking into such interventions, and there are various intervening factors from the private sector. They are good, healthy developments, but one thing stands out. There is policy inconsistency in our railway development. At one point, it was the coastal railway. At another point, Maradi, Kano also came up. At another time, they said all railways must be connected to state capitals. You see, all these things are a little bit of distractions. So, one other thing that may weigh against the second bid, 1960 to now, would be the absence of a national transport policy. You have unbundled the railway. How will these interventions key into your view of the NRC if you don't have a national transport policy? And that should guide all investments and limiting clauses for all the interventions. So with the absence of national transport policy, it is still difficult for states who have the resources to boldly intervene, because there is no laid down policy that they should follow. That is also what I would, in my mind, would be militating against the quicker development of the railways in Nigeria.
But primarily, the freight movement, how do we do it? Especially in industrial areas in Nigeria.
Yes. Well, one thing that will weigh positively to the first bit of the NRC, 1898 to 1960, would be the fact that the NRC, because of the way it was planned, also were responsible for the growth of many cities and towns. We are yet to see it in this current one.
Okay.
And that's number one. And number two, you see, the idea of having industrial centers and having a railway line through those industrial centers will actually aid to growth in the development of the economy. We have not seen that yet because, like I said earlier, some of these new railway routes currently are passenger heavy. And because they are passenger heavy, they are unlikely to attract this level of interest in terms of economic growth. Even though, yes, passengers had their own contribution, but in the rail sector, of course not. So these are the issues that in my opinion, national transport policy would have helped to address. You mentioned the issue of Lekki. Of course, that is an obvious case. You see, having the CNG trucks, yes, perfect. You can reduce in terms of emission. What of congestion, real physical congestion? What of noise? How do you address them? All this would have been taken into consideration at the planning stage of whatever you may have at Lekki. Not just the deep sea port, but of course the new refinery that is up there is a huge economic center. Have you planned for logistics system that will service that sector? So these are the issues. So it's still not late, and government will also look at its funding levels. You can give liberal incentive for private sectors that would want to intervene, but what is the basis for those interventions? So there should be a meaningful and dedicated approach to growing the NRC. It's not a one-time, thing. It has to be consistent. It has to be stable.
The investment.
Correct. And have a target where you are going. Other than that, you might not be able to achieve the very good result you may be looking at.
Paul, let's move from the realm of whether it's cargo or freight driven. One thing is very important for any mode of transportation: safety and security. In the last few years, transportation experts have not been comfortable as regards the safety aspect of the Nigerian Railways corridor. There have been stories and reports of derailment here and there. We've had cases of tracks being vandalized. We've had cases of deliberate and consistent encroachment on rail line corridors. The ones that have more or less escaped major either vandalization or derailment or any is Lagos Ibadan. So what should be done when looking at safety and security of rail line corridor, whether it's standard or narrow gauge?
Okay. Well, I will take that up, but I just have to mention that part of what may weigh positively to the second bit of the railway development will be the presence of rolling stock manufacturing plants at Kajola.
Kajola in Ogun State, yeah.
And also the prevalence or existence of a technical partner, the CCECC.
The Chinese.
Correct. These are huge opportunities that government must not make mistake with. The plant is there. Is it producing? No, because there have not been line extensions. The ones you have, Lagos to Ibadan at 157 kilometers, is already congested in terms of the rolling stock that are available. Have you planned for the renewal of these level crossings? As you are doing new extensions, what are the plans? That is on the side. But in terms of safety and security, you see, there is no, I would say, a safe railway system without a good signaling system. In our last discussion, we mentioned, well, of course, we stated the difference between signaling and communication. NRC safety operations is dependent on good signaling system. Having the communication network is for you to have the block telegraph rule which is from one station to the other, that is also a block station. There are various communication systems that you can deploy. But in terms of signaling, you have to make a critical choice on your signaling system, and that's what will guarantee your safety, because if you are coming to a station where you have multiple lines, how do you direct the train to which of the lines that you want to receive the train? That is the core of signaling system. So there must be a conscious effort on the part of not just the NRC, all rail line operators, to give consideration to the issue of signaling. That is one thing that can guarantee you safety. In some countries, they have what we call track transponders. Some of these lines, they are all digitalized, and they are manned by computer models that will determine the speed and how to change the lines and to which direction these trains might go into, depend on the level of technology. Railway can introduce their semi-automatic block system, signaling system that can help ameliorate challenges with human factor in terms of railway operations. Because generally it's also human intervention. And then for signaling system, looking at the rudimentary level of our railway system, we need an efficient signaling system in order to guarantee a safer train operations.
Paul.
Then, well, for the encroachments, of course, that is understandable. The more we secure our railway corridors, the more we are safer. Because even the refuse around where we have large population or encroachments, leaving metal object on the track, defacing the track, and all that. Even debushing the track, that wouldn't require, an external party. NRC should live up to expectation, debush his track and make his track worthy so that the trains can run more efficiently. It's also part of the safety and security of railway operations.
Paul, thank you very much. We won't stop sounding like a broken record on transport line when we talk about safety and security along our rail corridors. To me, it's like disaster waiting to happen. Yes, Lagos is a built-up area. It has always been, even in those days of narrow gauge. But the society was so structured that nobody would think it deem it fit to go and encroach. Today, when you look at the security implication around the country, now especially Lagos State, I keep harping on it. Fagba, Agege,
level crossing,
everywhere, rail corridor. Something should be done quickly. You see, we tend to be engaged in what I can tag razzmatazz infrastructural development. All those core areas which we should address, if really we have to develop, to me are not being addressed, are not being looked into. And let's from there delve into the area of non-oil export. Rail, what role should we play now? Non-oil export.
Well, of course, maybe, I don't know whether it's not yet in the public domain. There is huge export of agro products. And I can say this openly. The railway has contributed immensely in the exportation of this agro product via container traffic. And that's why you see a lot of container terminals springing up. And there are huge, currently they are in export season for cocoa. So a lot of exports are going on. And people are actually patronizing the NRCs, particularly around the terminals that they have around the railway corridor. Incidentally, with the, coming on stream of Lekki Deep Sea Port, of course, some of the airlines have chosen to, bat or patronize Lekki Seaport. So you don't see much of those transactions around here. As a matter of fact, with the Lekki deep sea for coming up, there have been some measure of reduced congestion around the ports here, because that has taken off a larger quantity or degree of traffic. That does not mean that we're out of the woods. We are still there, and more needs to happen. If you have similar, economic center growing up, you can see it can destabilize some of these issues that we have with transportation networks, particularly around Lagos. So for export, yes, and railway is contributing immensely to moving those cargo to the APMT, which is linked by rail. The Tinker not yet linked, but ENL and APMT are linked in Apapa, and they are fed regularly with exports, and they also take out import containers from those locations.
Okay, Paul, before we draw the curtain, internal container depots are springing up all over the country. How crucial is it for them to be linked by rail?
Two things. Whether the federal government or the federal government must define the role of its railways. And this definition can only come in terms of national transport policy for the railway development in Nigeria. That will enable every other sector to key into that. That's number one. The second question was on inland container depots. Of course, yes. For the fact that they are springing up means there has been a resurgence or a surge in terms of exportation. Nigeria currently is exporting a couple of agricultural products. And because of that, these container terminals are springing up in order to collect these products and put them into containers and export. As a matter of fact, it appears to be scarcity of even empty containers for purposes of going back or returning with agricultural products. That's what we can offer. We can offer tractors, we can offer vehicles, automobiles. So it's only because our economy is agricultural based, so there are a couple of agricultural products that are being exported, and they go via containers. However, the government may look into how to preserve these agricultural products so that they can arrive their destination in wholesome state. Nigeria has been declared as the largest producer of yam tubers, but Ghana is the highest exporter because they have opened their own processing system and have been able to. What does it take to look at the chemical composition of the yam, delineate them, and identify and have the barcode for them? Government can set up those centers and have refrigerated funds, RFVs for exporting of these agricultural products. That will put us on the world map. There's a lot more to be done, and railway will be critical social development depending on the choices both the federal government, the states, and the private sectors will make.
Paul Ndebe, railway consultant, I want to thank you very much for always being there for Transport Line. We hope policymakers will do something quickly about all the issues raised. Railway is there as one of the pivots to assist in the socio-economic development of any society, and we hope we really take advantage of that. Before we round up, continue to be a brother's keeper, be compassionate. Steadily, things are taking shape, but we are really not yet there. So even whenever we are there, compassion should be your keyword to your fellow human being. Till next time, bye-bye for now.